Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, 3, 2, 1, and we are
Rolling.
live.
When James, when I was looking through, I have this crazy. I think it's crazy. I have a 100 terabyte drive that's just full of. It's basically my life. I actually have it in triplicate in case anything happens. I have these three huge 100 terabyte RAID drives spread out in case like there's a fire, I got robbed or something. But basically, I can just type in anyone's name and like clips and videos and just anything will pop up. So I just typed in James Hobart and a bunch of stuff popped up. And then I typed in Hobart, and that's where I found the arm wrestling footage of us arm wrestling.
That the hug I give you at the end is aggressive.
Very. You probably felt horrible for beating me.
I did, man. I was like, this guy, if I could beat him, and this was probably new in our friendship, but if I was like, well, I could beat him in an arm wrestling match, he needs a big hug.
Hey, me, I never thought this until now. This is how naive I am. But were you letting me like get in the game? Like, were you, and then you were like, okay, I can beat him.
I was probably
Like,
feeling you out a little bit. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I figured.
Yeah.
Well, I think that was 2010, that footage of us arm wrestling. If you guys haven't seen it, you can see it in my story. If you can find my story. Um, but so it's 2000. So for 11 years, I actually thought that I was beating you. And then today,
No.
the charade
No.
ends. Damn.
Well, I'm glad we finally it's like a cold case solved.
You were a petite man back then.
I still think I am, like, comparatively when I walk around next to, other CrossFit tours. I still kind of feel like I'm on a smaller dude. I wear bigger shirts
Mm,
now, but
how much do you
I
weigh
was
again?
recently I've been weighing around 190, which is the heaviest I've ever weighed. But back then I probably weighed 170 pounds. So yeah, much lighter back then.
We lost Brian.
Hey, he's gone,
Yeah. I was
which is
just gonna I was just
which
gonna
is
ask him a question. He felt it and bailed.
so he said no way. Yeah, so a little bit bigger now, but when I look at some of the athletes and even throughout my competitive career, like I always felt like a smaller guy in CrossFit. I definitely think I was.
Are you a fight fan at all? Like a boxing fan or MMA?
No, I mean I like it, but if I was to sit here and be like, let's talk about specific fighters or athletes or strat, I'd be like, I just am stupefied by it. But I really like appreciate. I have a lot of friends who are into it, and I appreciate whenever I get to watch it at all. And I did a little bit of boxing training with a friend of mine who is a really good boxer, was a competitive boxer up in Massachusetts, and it was super humbling. I loved every second of it. It's something I would like to get into again.
Adrian Bosman did some boxing, right?
I don't know if Boz did. I know he just got his blue belt in BJJ.
Holy cow.
Yeah,
Wow. That's incredible. How do you know that? Did he post it on his Instagram?
I think his wife Kimmy posted it. Yeah,
Oh, I gotta send him a congratulations.
yeah.
Congratulations, Adrian. That's
And
amazing.
because from what I understand, like blue belt's like a really big accomplishment. Like that's kind of like s- you know, you're
I
no
think it's where
longer
a lot
just
of
a
people
novice.
quit. I think there's some
Yeah,
jujitsu jokes where people talk about that there's a joke about that.
yeah. Um,
The reason why I
we have
ask is go ahead.
no. I was just gonna say I have a friend of mine, Ruben Coronado. He just opened a BJJ school studio in Boston, South Boston BJJ, and he's competed at like the national level. Like he's really good. And it's funny because he's a small guy and he has like he's really laid back and he doesn't have an aggressive personality. And we were joking one day and I was like, Ruben, do you think I could beat you up? And he just looked at me and he was like, there's not a chance.
Oh wow.
And just like this absolute, and he's like, Ruben's one of the nicest people I ever met, but watching videos of him and like seeing, everyone he trains and how much they love him as I think you're called a professor, but yeah, it's really interesting. It's something I
That
need more respect for.
I overheated. I thought my jacket was cool. I overheated.
A nice shirt though.
Thank you. Thank you.
You were
Take
gonna say
anything
something. Sorry.
take anything and get free. I was just when I was on the podcast with Josh and Matt last week, Josh was telling me that he weighs 165 pounds and that concerned me a little bit since he's going to be going up against Jacob Hebner.
Oh, I heard you talking to Dave about this. I don't think I just saw Josh recently, and we hung out a little bit. We did a fundraising event, but he didn't look 165. Josh still looks jacked. You know,
Well, he'll look 165 if Hebner shows up at 190 for the fight. Josh will look 165.
yeah. Hepner looks a little bit leaner too, though. But that's and he's a bigger guy, like in terms of like height and reach, which from what I do understand, that is a game changer when it comes to fighting, right?
Yeah.
Boxing.
Yeah. Well, normally I don't know if it's going to. I don't know if it's going to in theirs, but normally, James, could you tilt your camera down so I could look at your torso? I will not be saying. You know, it's crazy. I guess I am sexist because if we have Danielle Brandon on tomorrow morning, and if her
Nice.
camera's like just pointed at her head, I wouldn't say that.
It's all right.
I guess I do have boundaries. I guess I am concerned about my peers and the public's judgment of me. I always thought I wasn't.
I don't know. I'm just, or I'm just glad you said it to me.
We are 8 minutes into the show. I think it's time for Brian to say something. Brian.
Yep.
When the show started, before you dipped out and dipped in and dipped out and dipped in and dipped out, you were looking at something on your screen and you go, "Holy!" What were we looking at?
Actually, I don't remember.
Good answer. Good.
Which means he remembers perfectly and he does not want to talk about
Wait,
it.
Actually, I do remember. I do remember now.
Okay,
But it wasn't anything that fascinating. It was just, remember I told you about that guy who's helping me out with some data accumulation or congregation? Yeah. He did a lot of work today.
And you're impressed.
Yep.
And it's not easy to impress you. This is the first show, James, where we've had Ryan Jevning. He's always worked deep behind what? I didn't say his name right.
Forgot a Jevning.
Ryan Jevning. Usually we just have a guy. This is the guy that runs our YouTube station, and he runs the YouTube station for Josh, Matt and Sevan podcast. And I mean, he's gung ho, and he's like, "Hey, we can do stuff live, and if you give me access to the Riverside FM software, I'll figure out a way that I can like produce the shows." So that's why he sent out the phone number today, and now the team has expanded to 4. It's myself, Brian, Matt Souza, owner of CrossFit Livermore, and Ryan Jevning. I don't know what he owns. I think he's too young to own anything.
I think he's doing a great job so far.
See that? Look at that. It's our first sound effect.
Laugh tracks. Oh my God.
Did you see the Tour de France footage that happened with the lady holding the sign and she turns the sign and knocks off the bikers off their bikes?
No, I didn't see. I just saw the clip of it on your Instagram.
Okay, so you saw it.
I saw that, yeah.
Okay. Oh, look at Ryan showing off now. Look at this. Okay, can you see this, James?
Yeah, 100%.
Bunch of handsome lads, helmets on for safety first.
Oh,
Boom.
was she taking a photo?
Oh my God.
I don't know. That's a good question. But that is an epic wipeout, right?
Yeah.
Oh, that aerial view is insane. So I saw an article today that says that they're looking for her. They don't know who she is and that she could face a year in jail. And basically, I wouldn't even know the Tour de France was going on if it wasn't for that clip.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And I'm almost and part of the Tour de France is the fact that like dogs run onto the track and that people are out there and it's hairball. Like,
yeah,
and I just don't think she should be punished for it in any way. No fine, no, like, you're the people who put on the event. I mean, they should just have people sign releases first. Like, hey, it's like the Iditarod if you were eaten by a polar bear. Like, is that really the fault of the is that the polar bear's fault or the people who put? No, you're not buying it, James.
I just don't think you can make the analogy that this lady's like a polar bear, but I get what you're saying.
I think the only way it's like the polar bear situation is that's the only way we know what's going on.
Yeah, no, yeah, that too.
That too.
No,
That
I
too.
get what you're saying. I don't. It didn't look like she was doing it maliciously. I don't know. You probably can't like most things. Like, who knows if they're where did that clip come from that they're gonna put her in jail for a year? I bet she's in the hospital, man. She got smashed. That's probably where they're not looking where they should be looking. Like, someone should ask her if she's all right too. Like, I definitely the competitors, and we talked about this last time. Like, I don't wish any harm on competitors who are competing, but I do feel like
neither.
if you're gonna compete, that's par for the course. Like, risk of injury.
Especially when they let the fans just hang out there right on the edge, which I think is brilliant. I don't think they should stop doing that.
If anything, that lady, if this happened in the USA, that lady could just turn around and sue Tour de France.
Perfect.
That's what should be happening right now.
Perfect.
I don't know.
We're big time.
I don't know
So
about that, James. It reminds me of that the guy at the Cubs game back like 10, 15 years ago. And he ended up having to go into witness protection because people were so crazy about how he interfered with the sport.
What did he do?
He stuck his hand out over the field of play a little bit and interfered with a potentially foul ball catch till end of a playoff game.
Yeah,
I have a hard
I'm
time
okay with
this.
that. I'm okay with that. Go ahead, James.
That he's going into witness protection or that he did it.
Both. This is a free show. You don't have to follow any script or narrative. You could switch the subject and talk about your granny glasses on your head, whatever you want, buddy.
Oh yeah, I still have them on. I usually don't wear my glasses in front of other people for that reason. I totally agree. I'm glad you called me out on them. But now the world knows. No, I don't know.
You're a master's athlete. Of course we know. You're gonna bring three pairs of
that's the thing. Yeah,
those
right, man.
supermarket
My
glasses
vision
to
is
the
these are
games.
just they're those blue light glasses, so that's why I'm actually embarrassed to wear them because I'm not someone who really needs glasses. I'm just sucked into a trend that's probably totally unnecessary.
I wore
To
them
not.
night for an episode of on here, and it was just reflecting the screens I was looking at, and I didn't like it, so I put them aside.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that I look at it, like most people, I look at a computer screen a lot. But doesn't the sun put off like a shitload of blue light? Is there a fact check on that? I don't know. It doesn't matter. Anyway, it doesn't matter. I think the lady. I hope she's okay. I hope the riders get back up on it. I think if they're going to put her in jail for a year, that's insane. That's my hot take on that.
How about a fine?
No, man. What do you? If she's out on the track. Like, I don't know. Regulate your race better.
Right. And that's part of the cool thing about. Unfortunately, we live in a time where people are so risk averse, but they don't. That I'm concerned that they're gonna keep the fans away now.
Yeah.
Like push the fans back. Were you in the 2009 games, James?
I was short for a very brief period of time. I got cut early, but I was there the whole weekend.
Did you do?
That's 10 years before 2019.
Yeah, I'll never forget that moment. It was the run and then the deadlift, which were the two events that I just did not practice all year because I sucked at them. So why would you train what you're bad at?
Of course.
So I got cut really early, and I remember Dave standing up on a table in the middle of that shed and announcing the first cuts.
Did you cry?
No, I didn't cry. I was really frustrated, but I was also like, there's this point in my CrossFit life where it was just like, I met everyone who had done, eventually would go to do just about anything in CrossFit. I met that weekend, and it was a super awesome weekend. No complaints.
So you didn't do the hill run?
I did the hill run, then the deadlift, and then I got cut, and then they did the hill sprints, which I didn't do.
Oh, sorry. I'm talking about the hill sprint.
Yeah,
the one where
I
the
didn't-
fans were on either side. Did you do that?
Yeah, I didn't do those.
So, and I would argue that that's been the best event in the history of the CrossFit Games. And I would love to talk. I wish next time, hey guys, let's vet our guests a little more. That was the whole premise of this show, is to talk.
Yeah,
to
you
an
need somebody
athlete
who's a little fitter.
who ran that event.
Is that because it smashed everybody, or because it was a foot race, or
all of that stuff? It was it was short. It was a foot race. It smashed everyone, but even though it was short, there was still like all the modalities were being sort of, not all, but more than what would normally be tested in a short event like that, in a running event. More modalities were tested.
In addition, the timing of it, no one was expecting that. It was a very on the spur of the moment thing. reaction. The athletes didn't really know what to expect, so it exposed people in a different way. And the footage of it's raw. The event felt raw, very, like of the Aroma Stays. Like it encapsulates what that emotion and feel of that place must have been.
And people were
The same
running.
event at a different time wouldn't have had the same effect historically or in the moment.
And places were changing throughout the entire race. It wasn't like a 100-yard sprint where you get ahead and you're the winner. It was like 20 feet before the finish line. It was still like shoving and pushing and places switching. But what I really liked about it is the fans were there. Like they were yelling 2 feet from your head. It was like that Tour de France thing we saw.
It did have that vibe to it.
There's few events
Yeah.
at the games that I think that both years in Madison to differing degrees had similar feel, especially the crit, the second one. In that course, especially near the finish line and start area. Athletes had to change their bike if they got like a foot caught in a peg in a clip or a clip popped out. I mean, they were basically in the stands getting a new bike or getting the maintenance fixed on their bikes.
The crit was really fun to watch.
Except that it's a biking event.
I don't know. I liked it. I don't know if there's anything wrong with that.
I mean, I see the Tour. I see baseball, biking, and golf kind of all in the same world of interest for me in terms of sports.
World.
You know?
Yeah.
They're totally different in terms of
or like the triathlon. I'm just saying from a spectator's point of view. And so the most exciting thing that can happen in a car race, I think, is the crash, bike race, the crash, baseball. I don't know anything that happens exciting there, or golf. I don't think anything exciting does happen.
I was having a conversation today with a friend about NASCAR. I went to one NASCAR race in my life, and I remember the first 5 laps, the last 5 laps, and the one crash. Those are the 3 things that stood out. Luckily for the crit race, it was only 10 laps, so it got both the first and the last.
Where did you go to a NASCAR race?
Texas Motor Speedways.
Okay.
7.
That's a big speedway. I went down to Bristol for a race a while ago, and that was for NASCAR. It was really cool.
Oh, okay. So tell me, what did you like about it? I'm sure it's
It's
my
a
lack of appreciation.
It's a super short track, and I just think one of the things that's really one thing that's neat about it is all the behind the scenes, the team aspect that goes into getting one person in a car and getting through the race successfully. Like the more you understand that, I think the more appreciation you have from it. And then just honestly, the ability for consistency throughout the race, I think is really amazing. You know, it's and I think from a driver's standpoint, while the course becomes very consistent, there's a lot that happens throughout that race that does not make it like the same lap over and over and over again. But I think that's what's really cool about it.
I went to a motorcycle race. I filmed the Ducati team at Laguna Seca one time.
Oh, cool track.
Yeah, and I think the track's like a mile long, right?
Yeah, I don't know the exact length on that, but it's just really famous for that back downhill corkscrew turn.
Yeah, holy cow. Yeah, I actually walked over there and looked at that thing. You can't even get your head wrapped around it when you're looking at it. It's so steep. It's like racing down Lombard Street in San Francisco.
Yeah.
But basically, if you're a fan, you are kind of you can walk around the track. I actually heard that the place holds 1 million people. I don't know if that's true, but it's massive, right?
That is huge.
That's one of the reasons I wanted to go, is because I couldn't believe how many people. I feel like 100,000 people go to every NASCAR race. Like that's bigger than any sporting event, pretty much.
But once you get seated somewhere like that's if you don't walk around, you're just there. And the cool part is when they go flying by. Like I spent most of my time right in front of the pits filming, and it's amazing when they go flying by on that straightaway. But I don't know. The most exciting part is one of the racers I was following, his bike caught on fire.
Probably wasn't very exciting for him.
Hobart, do you still FaceTime with Austin?
Yeah, we talk frequently.
But specifically FaceTime?
Yeah, I try and regulate it a little bit. I have this weird thing. I don't feel like everyone should be FaceTiming you all the time. And I feel like it's becoming a ubiquitous form of communication, which in some ways is probably really nice for people, who are distant. But it's also like, if you FaceTime me all the time, I'm hanging up on 70% of those.
Oh, interesting.
And I'm just going to call you back on the phone.
Okay.
Sevan has this problem at all.
No, Not at all. But the reason
No.
why is because the only two people that I know who FaceTime, like outside of like grandparents and kids, my whole life, are you and Austin Malleolo. I've never heard of anyone else like using FaceTime ever.
That's a
And
lie.
oh, tell me who? That's not a lie.
I thought my friends FaceTime.
Right, but most of your friends aren't. Most of your friends hate me and aren't my friends. So
That's fair.
you're supposed to push back. But how old are you? Sorry, go ahead, Ryan.
So I just got a message that remember we talked about that woman, the girl that was formed by the weightlifting world that was competing on the team that qualified from the Mid Atlantic. Do you remember?
Oh yes.
So without any knowledge, they were removed from the games invite list, and then someone just messaged me. It's on Instagram.
Oh, awesome. That's fantastic, right?
Yeah, it's great. It's just it's always so strange to me how those things like get out. There's no announcement about it. There's no publication about it. It just happened behind the scenes, and someone tracks it down eventually.
Okay, let's circle back about that because I have some interesting insight into that. I want to say, I want to talk about this FaceTime thing. So, how old are you, Hobart? Hobart, put your glasses on if you're squinting. I won't make fun of you anymore.
No, what is this little logo on top of the thing?
Oh, that's
Is
a
that
man
you sitting like?
Go on.
Is that you? That's like who is you've been hanging out with the sun god Ra too much.
True.
Anyway, I just turned 35.
And what's the average age of the people who FaceTime you? I know it's a biased sample because you're
It's a
35.
crazy question.
Thank you.
Let's say, I don't know. Yeah, 33.
Okay. And do you have any recollection of the oldest person who's FaceTimed you?
My mother.
Come on, man.
That's it.
I mean, someone besides that. Of course, your mom can FaceTime you. I have no rules about. Mom has no rules.
I don't know other than that.
Because the reason I'm bringing this up, and I mentioned this to Jason Hopper too, is he was on the podcast once. We really hit it off. Good times. But I hit it off with everyone on the podcast. And then like a week later, not even a week later, like 3 days later, he FaceTimed me. Did I talk to you about this
Moving
already?
fast.
Did I talk to you about this already?
How old is he?
17.
I was gonna say because he looks like a grown man.
23. He's actually older than Justin Medeiros.
And he had his
Is he gonna
shirt
win?
off. And he had his shirt off. He FaceTimed me with his shirt off.
Because when you look like he does, you can do that kind of stuff. You were wearing you were wearing 5 jackets. Jason Hopper shows up shirtless.
I think
Brian,
that is also a fair analysis. Brian was wearing something low cut the other day. He had no business wearing.
Nice. Like a called boat neck shirt. Nice.
It was something Heber and Marsden gave him. It was a tank top, and he had.
I was going to their party, man. I was going to their party,
and he had just the full carpet showing.
Oh, how was the after party in Vegas? Would you have fun?
Yeah, it was great. I was pretty late to it. A lot of people had left by that point, but there were still plenty of people there.
How late did you
people
get
stayed
there?
real late. 10. It was supposed to go from 4:30 till 10.
I was gonna say people were leaving at 10, and I don't know if it was that good of a party, but I guess if it was only going from 4:30 to 10, it was a good party.
It like transitioned into just a normal party in Vegas that happened to have a bunch of CrossFitters at it in addition to who would have normally.
I was flattered that I was flattered that I want to wrap this up, and then I'll get off the FaceTime thing. But I was flattered that he FaceTimed me. I was flattered that he FaceTimed me with his shirt off. But my old man ways, I was like tripping. I was like, hey man,
you decline that?
If I didn't decline it, but if anyone else would have FaceTimed me, I would have hung up and automatically assumed that it was that pocket dial, no matter what.
I'm only gonna FaceTime you now.
Oh shit. Well, that's kind of cool. That's cool. Eventually, maybe I'll be acclimated.
Yeah, I vibe with that. I don't think it's a. I was talking to another friend of mine. There are a lot of things I like about the phone call.
Oh, without the image.
Yeah.
Yeah, most of the people I talk to, I only talk to like 3 people. Like I recently just added Brian to my favorites, and now it's like we're friends. Like I call him even if I have nothing to say. Kind of weird. But most people I talk to, I just like to have them in my ear, and like even if I go into a store, or they go into a store, like we just stop talking until the person comes out. You know what I mean? It's like just like hanging out with them.
You just sit there.
Yeah. Or like if no one's saying anything, we don't get off the phone. We just go through the silence.
I want to ask a Jason Hopper question, Brian.
Okay.
What kind of real shot, knowing what you know now about who's going to go to the games, what kind of shot does he have about top 5? And what makes him so good?
Do you have an answer to that, Hobart? Are you asking and then you have a
No, I'm
opinion?
asking like a serious question. Yeah, because I watched
Okay.
him at the MAC a little bit, and you know, I've heard all the chatter, so I'm just really curious to know what an expert thinks.
Well, I think he's kind of a unique case this year where I feel like Sevan and I talked about it. Have to give him actually a chance to win or to podium, but I also don't think he's necessarily one of the 3 favorites to win or 4 or maybe even 5 favorites to win coming into the game. So he's just this. He's like, I feel like there's a couple guys that I would rank ahead of him that I think have a lower floor, but he has a higher ceiling. So for example, I feel like he's going to have a great year this year, and I would say that like more often than not he'll finish at the games higher than Hopper. Finish is lower than Hopper's highest possible finish.
Wow. Okay. I'm feeling you.
Yeah, no, that's really interesting.
And the reason,
what do you think makes him so good? Because he was a collegiate. He played football at Clemson, correct? Is that true, or some sport at Clemson? Is that what I heard?
Yeah, he was a preferred walk-on Clemson's football team, and he's very athletic. He's very, But the reason why I think he can actually do that well, I'm expecting him to have a couple bad events at the games. It happens to almost everyone. I have a feeling that there might be 1 or 2 things that will show up that he's just going to struggle against this field because it is actually a pretty deep inside this year, relative to some say, but he can events and he can beat guys that can win events at the games. I mean, he won several events at the Mid-Atlantic. He didn't really have a bad event there. If let's just say there's 13 events, I wouldn't be surprised if he has, 10 top 12 finishes and 3 finishes 20.
What do you think about this idea about Hopper? Hopper reminds me of a fighter who's like undefeated, like a 10-0 or an 11-0. And maybe I'm wrong, but from the time that
1-0,
1-0, whatever. I just mean early in his career. Let's say 6-0. Let's compromise. And I think the words out of his mouth or what he was conveying to us is he doesn't know how good or how bad he is. Like he doesn't know, And so I think on some levels that gives you a shit ton of confidence. He's never been knocked out. Once a fighter's been knocked out, then it's like, oh shit. Then they kind of start knowing where they're at. I don't think he's
always going to go into it like thinking he can do really well.
Or he's like, this is a bad analogy, but kind of almost like like backing a cat into a corner. You fucking have no idea what it's going to do to you. Is it going to roll over on its belly or is it going to attack you? Like, I don't think he really knows even. He doesn't know, like, he doesn't see the end game, the boundary. I don't think he knows his boundaries.
That's pretty cool. I'm excited to see that. Have you asked Matt the question of like, hey, whoever wins this year, do you think that guy is thinking like, or should be thinking like, oh, thank God Matt's not competing? Because I can finally, 4th place can be like, I can finally get on the podium.
We all think that in the CrossFit world, but I wouldn't dare. I wouldn't ask Matt that.
I think Matt.
I feel like it would put him in a weird position.
I feel like he's probably been asked that in 2015, 16, maybe leading up to the games. He said, if someone probably asked him, if you win this year, will you feel like, oh, I wonder if I would have beaten Rich? And maybe even in 2016, they say, like, do you think if we're to win this year? I'm sure someone's asked him that. So he's probably been on the. So it might be interesting from that perspective. I'm sure his answer would have been something like, if the guy wanted to put his name in the ring, he should have put his name in the ring. And if he didn't, I can't do anything about it. I can only beat the guys that are here.
Obviously,
be
yeah,
a
that's a
better
pretty
way to ask that
obnoxious
question. Yeah, it's got to be
Yeah, but
it's a great question, James, but there's got to be a better way to ask it.
yeah, much better way. Because if someone asked that to me, I'd be really pissed.
How about fuck you like that?
Yeah,
They're kind of shitting on your parade.
yeah,
Was 2009 your first CrossFit Games?
it was.
And were you nervous your first event? Like, what's Jason gonna feel when he goes out there?
I was really nervous, and I was nervous too because I was pretty entrenched in the community up until that point. So it's like everyone I was competing against out there were people like that had, without knowing it, taught me CrossFit through the internet. So it was like, I was like, you know, it was very cool. Oh, there's Spiel running up and down the hill. Oh, there's Pat Barber. That's who I've watched 15 videos from. And because in 2008, you did Every Second Counts, and I've watched that movie 25,000 times.
That's
Um,
healthy.
Sevan, how'd you choose
yeah,
those guys to feature on that documentary? Because there were some other good choices that were left out, I think.
Like, why didn't we choose James Hobart?
I didn't. That
Wow.
was 2008. I didn't.
So before I answer that question, like, give me some ideas. Like, who should we have chosen?
I'm trying to remember I think it was 5 guys that you featured, but like, the one guy, Welburn, it's kind of obvious why you chose him despite the fact that he didn't do well was because he was an outlier. But I think it was like Dutch. Like there were some guys that were just about as good as Dutch that I felt like just went with that guy for some reason.
You should have picked Jason Khalipa, but you didn't. You messed that up.
Oh, Hobart, we should have had you as a producer. You could have unfucked us. So the story is this. The media team at that time was like, I think it was just me and Carrie Peterson, Tony Budding. I don't know if there was anyone else on the media team at that time. It was originally just like Tony and Lauren, and then Lauren stopped making media, and then I think it was just Tony. And then Carrie and I popped onto the scene in 2006. And we wanted to do a documentary on the 2007 games. I really wanted to, and they said that was the first year of the CrossFit Games, and they said no. Or Greg kind of just brushed it off. I know it's a shame, huh? In hindsight, he should have just done it. I could have just done it too. So then in 2008, about 2 months before the CrossFit Games started, Tony, who was the head of the CrossFit Media at that time, said, "Hey, this is what I want you to do at the CrossFit Games, X, Y, and Z." And I said, "Okay." And then Lauren called me, and Lauren Glassman, Greg's wife at the time, and she said, "Hey, what do you guys want to do at the games?" And I said, "I want to make a documentary about the CrossFit Games." This is 2 months before the games. And the way the games worked back then, I think you just show up and compete. Anyone can just show up and compete. So she said, "Okay, go ahead and make a documentary." And then I said, "Okay." So then I called Tony, I think, back, and he said, "No, you're not going to make a documentary. You're going to do this. You're going to make content for the site." And I was like, "Okay." So then I talked to Lauren, and she said, You're not doing the documentary?" And I said, "No." He said we had to make content, for .com. And she said, "Oh, just ignore basically anything whenever he tells you something, just say yes and then do whatever you want." I'm not even making that up. That's I don't know if that's verbatim, but it's so close to paraphrase if it's not verbatim. So, I put together a budget for the movie. It was like $17,000. And back when we shot it in HD, we bought the best HD cameras that had just come out. It was like for camera geeks, it was like a Panasonic 150N or 155N or 50N. And we immediately got on so then we basically talked. I think we probably talked with Dave, and we just chose those athletes. I can't remember. And we also chose women. So we chose 5 women and 5 men, or 6 women and 6 men. And we filmed with all the women and we filmed with all the men. And back then, the women's was way less developed than the men. It's not like now where maybe you could even argue the women are surpassing the men in terms of the evolution of the sport. There was just no comparison. There was no I mean, there's probably 12-year-old kids who could win the CrossFit Games in the women's division alive now. So we just chose those people. And I remember we were at Freddie Camacho's CrossFit gym in like Sunnyvale or Fremont or some shit like that. And we were filming with Pat Barber. and Austin Bijibing, who's on the L1 team and good friends with James Hobart, he's there training a guy named Jason Khalipa. And Bijibing's like saying, dude, this guy's so good. This guy's so good. And he does some crazy workout while we're there. Something like, I know it wasn't this, but it was like 10 thrusters at 135, 10 burpees, 3 rounds. And we just saw him just decimate it. And so then we were like, or maybe it was 95 pounds back then. I can't remember. But as he walked off, I think I said to Austin Bijibing or to Freddie Camacho, hey, that fucking dude
I think
better
it's
not
Big
ruin.
Eving, but
Thank you, Big E Bing.
sorry.
It's nice the way you say, no, please, always correct. And I turned to one of those guys and I said, hey, that dude better not fuck up our movie. Ben, he fucked up our movie.
And you had to move a barbell that well, and you didn't think on the last event someone should probably film this guy?
I'm no Brian friend. Hey, dude, when we were in the back room before the final event, we were in this in Dave's like shed that was like 110 degrees and everyone's warming up. I think Dave, I don't remember if it's in the movie, but I think Dave looked at Jason Khalipa and goes, "What are you doing here?" Because it was just supposed to be the finalists, and Dave is so serious. He said it even more serious. "What are you doing here?" Just like, "Fuck you, get out." And I can't remember. Obviously, he belonged there.
Yeah, I've heard that story.
And
I
dude,
don't remember where it was from though.
He started Spieler started like easily a minute before him.
Yeah.
So then Jason won the games and the movie was movie. And then we just didn't have enough compelling footage of the women. Like the movie was already like 90 minutes or however long it was. That footage is probably sitting somewhere.
It's kind of crazy. Like if you said to me today, hey Brian, who are the 5 guys I should cover in the lead up to the games? And I'm gonna try to pick 5, and of the 5 I pick, the minimum podium placements I could get would be 2. And it would be 3 of them, and I think that 4 out of 5 in the top 5 is even doable for the men this year. But when I look back and I see the guys that you picked and I see where they finished, it's like, obviously I understand why you picked Fitzgerald and Josh Spieler, and then you just picked Dutch Lowry, Matt Mursky, and John Welburn. And those other 3 guys, like, you could have picked Pat Barber, Matt Chan. You could have picked Jeremy Thiel. You could, like, I don't know if there was a specific reason for some of the others.
You know what? Maybe we filmed with Jeremy. I can't remember. I filmed with him a lot, or I would see him a lot in the community. I can't remember if we filmed with him or not. Probably not if it's not in there. But
it might be because
it was a $17,000 budget.
Yeah.
Just 2 guys working on the film. I mean, it was nuts. It was nuts.
Oh, obviously, it was very good anyway.
It came together,
and it gave you the opportunity to do a bunch more of them. So,
can I sidetrack us?
Please.
So Brian says that he, if you said give me 5 people to film, he could give you 5 and 3. He would, without any doubt, he could. All 3 of them would be on the podium. What stats, Brian, are you looking at that makes you so sure? Is this just like?
I thought you were going to ask a dumb question. That's brilliant.
So I guess to
I thought you were
going to ask, well, who would they be, Brian? Like just the cheap, easy question. But you asked something like deeper. That is fucking good.
But
can you pretend like you didn't say it and I ask it?
Yeah, go ahead. Hit it up. Tee it up.
Sevan, what a great question you fed James there.
I sent it to him in the chat.
Texted it to me, yeah.
So I guess I should start by saying at this point in the research that I've done, I still have 9 men that I feel like could make the podium this year. But if you were going to ask me to only, then there are certain things that I would look at, and some of them would head-to-head performance in a similar competition to what I'm expecting at the games. And obviously there's always factors coming to Noah last week, and he was telling us about a shoulder injury, very personal kind of outlier type of a had leading into the semifinals that none of us. So there's always
that story. Did you hear that story, James? What happened to Noah?
I didn't hear that story yet. I wanted to watch that podcast, but I haven't listened to it yet.
Okay, sorry, Brian. You're saying important shit, so I'll try to not.
No, yeah, yes and no, but that's it was an unexpected thing to hear from him, and obviously those things can happen. But based on no one's ever beaten Pat Vellner in live competition in 5 years, at least in a live competition where he's been able to take the entire test, other than Brett done it once at the Dubai CrossFit Championships. So I'm going to put Vellner in the list. Then I'm going to look at Brent Fikowski's historical performances that he's had in relevant competitions, but regionals in the past. Asia CrossFit champion, second at the Granite Games. So his last recent live competitions we've seen him in. Plus, he's got 3 finishes at the CrossFit Games. I'm going to put him in the list. And competition, which no one will be able to convince advantageous setting for him. The more events there are, the better. The more complex the events are, the better. So for me, it's pretty easy to put those 2 guys in that list. Like it's almost where you have to start eliminating guys, and so I just start looking at kind of head-to-head records when it matters the most, and even then it's tough because, like I said, Scott Panchik and Björgman Carl Gudmundsson, those are great examples of guys who have historically been amazing at the games. Like you can almost pen for a top 6 finish, but how Justin Medeiros and Jason are up to 10 years younger than them, and Medeiros made it through the stage 1 last year, and then no Olsen at the games. Like you can't just over that,
Who
So
beat Noah Olsen at the games? Who did you say?
Medeiros. Well, he was 3rd.
Okay.
Sam McQuant was 2nd. So he's the highest ranking returning guy from last year's games. Very young, has a sanctional win at the Filthy 150. He would have won the Granite Games the year before if he knew how to move a bag. He's proved that he can do that now. So he's, has the proven in the few competitions we've seen him. Now he was 3rd place at the Mid-Atlantic, but he's actually in the group of athletes now who I'm for semifinals even. They're prepared and ready, but they're still to go. And really, if you look at the Granite Games, the guys that were in the top 4 there, where they were so far clear of the 5th place guy that I think that they almost, those are people who's still learning what he can do. But Panchik, Madero, and who's the other guy that was, and Mayer, we should qualify for this. I would say Mayer maybe. He was, for him, he has to make it. He's oftentimes 4th or 5th and just barely getting in. But halfway through that weekend, he knew he was hanging with those guys. Anyway, that's a great question, because if you told me Scott Panchik and BKG or Justin Medeiros and Jason Harper, who's going to have the better finishes at the games, I don't.
What about Jeremy Stuckey? Does he have a chance to win the games?
Division.
That's good.
What?
I like that. No, I like how quickly What did you think about his answer? Now review his answer. Does he know what he's talking about, Hobart? I mean, you're an athlete. What do you think that's fair critique analysis? Did you not get what you wanted? I didn't feel like I got what I wanted.
No,
because basically he says he looks at wins. He says he looks at wins.
Yeah, I wanted to hear like a technical approach. I'm sure there's some there's some
nuance?
style in there. Yeah, some nuance to that. But something that's not tangible that he's picking up. But I like that, Brian. I've known Brian a long time, so I trust his analysis, and he seems to be pretty accurate so far.
I agree with both of that. I trust his analysis. He's astute and reliable, but either he's holding something from us or he sounds like a goddamn psychic.
Well, there are more, like with all of the stats that I'm, he won the Dubai CrossFit Championship, but who was in that field, and you might know and the quantity of tests that there were. I mean, I can't remember the number, but there were at least a dozen games athletes in that field. Roman Krenikov was there, who people always want to the best. He finished 3rd. The only guys who beat him were Fikowski and Vellner. He beat Vellner by a handful of points. It was very close between the 2 of them. And there were some other guys in that field. BKG was in that field. Lazar Jukic, Georgios Karavis, who were all going to the games this year. Tola Morakinyo was in that field. It was a deep field. Jeffrey Adler, Alexander Caron was there. Fabian Benito. Winning this competition is not a small feat. Over 10 events against that quality of field. That's the last time he's competed live. But if I say that he got first at Asia CrossFit, the second place guy was Josh and Haynes. It's not the same kind of a win. So wins is, I'm talking about caliber of win.
Hobart, do you have a chance of winning your Masters division?
Yeah, I think I have a chance.
You do.
I love it.
Yeah.
And who is Casper Bauer in your
Yeah,
corral?
he is.
Oh,
Mhm.
that's horrible. Who else?
Yeah,
Any
it's
other
bad.
just pit bulls like that?
Honestly, all of them. The 35-year-old masters are stacked. Nick Block, Adrian. Zach Forrest competing, Dan Bailey's competing. A lot of even names I don't know. It was cool, and I've said this before. I think I said this last time with you guys. Is that if you look at the qualifiers going to the Masters, what was really cool about it was just the international diversity. Like it was like there's somebody from Japan, Ireland, Russia, U.S. It was just cool seeing that, and all those guys are super.
Why is that
fit.
cool? Why is that cool, Hobart? They should all be from the United States of America.
No Canadians?
That'd be cool. That'd be cool
No.
too. No.
There
actually are no
They're already
Canadians.
beating the shit out of us in the individual competition.
There are no
In the women's
Canadians actually.
competitions. There in the Masters. There's no Canadians.
Not in James's category.
Oh, there you go.
Oh.
Only 17 have registered so far. They're from. So the thing that is most interesting to me is the distribution of ages. So Sevan of the. Well, first of all, from the last time they had a match, had 10, 9 competed. Kyle Casper withdrew prior to the games that year, and the other 9 that competed made it this year. So it's an entirely new group. But
It's cool.
It is cool, and those guys must be savages.
But there are Casper did come back, and besides him, there are also 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 other guys that are 37, 8, or 9 years old, which is like 7 out of 7.
1 foot in the grave.
Can Jason Smith win? I know this is harsh. Sorry, Jason. I like you. I kind of want to have you on the podcast. But can Jason Smith? Do you know who Jason Smith is, Hobart?
Yeah, qualified. He's multiple games athlete, qualified out of South Africa.
Right. Can he win the 35 to 40 division? Who's in there with him? If he were to run.
That's
that
35
race?
to 39. It's
and that is the first Masters division. It starts at 35. Can he win that division? Is he better than Hobart?
Are you asking James?
No, I wouldn't ask James. Put James in a position like that. He's like
I could have sworn you just asked him.
He's like Switzerland. He's a good dude.
I think if Jason Smith was competing in that division, he would be the favorite to win.
Wow. Okay, James, can that dude beat you?
All right, I got to go train, guys. This was fun. See you later.
You know, the guy in that division that really intrigues me is the Finnish Tuomas Vainio.
Yep, really fit.
Yeah, why do I know that game? That guy, I'm sure I've interviewed him. Was he was a games athlete?
He was? Let's check his profile.
Is he? How do I know him?
Yeah, that name sounds familiar. His name sounded really familiar to me too.
I don't from, but I
maybe
definitely
Ryan can
recognize
pull up
him.
his Instagram or something. Thomas Vino?
No.
Oh.
No,
he's not N-I-O.
Italian. Finnish.
Are you regretting coming on, James?
No, not at all. I love chatting with you guys. I just like listen to Brian just body bag you with stats.
It's not nice.
Sorry, I'll be nice.
Nice. And among the favorites, I have a feeling Adrian Conway is going to be pretty good, pretty well. Nick Block should be pretty competitive. Those are the guys, but those are the guys that I think. How old's Ader Costa? 36.
Have you talked to Zach Forrest at all, like on the phone or anything, or do you see him anywhere, James?
I actually texted him when we were going through the age group qualifiers. And I'm gonna take credit for the reason that he made it, because he texted me. He said, "Should I redo the last workout?" Because he was close. He was like 23rd or 22nd, and I said, "Why wouldn't you redo it, man? Like, there's no reason not to. If you redo it and do worse, you're in the same spot you are now. And if you redo it and you do better, you might get in. And then he like just squeezed in, I think, the 20th or 19th.
Wow. For those of you who don't
There
know,
should
Zach
end up being at
Forrest
least one of the guys, Stas Solidov, qualified out of individual as well.
I watched, because when he was putting up his times, I watched all of his videos. He's a monster. It was like in my head, I was like, and I know where my training's at, and I'm not something, like I'm just not I'll show up and do my best and have fun kind of guy. But I looked at him and I was like, holy shit, like I got to really get fitter. Because his times,
This is an interesting thing,
numbers are
right?
crazy.
I haven't really looked into him too much yet. I'm kind of start at my bottom, my way down through the guys that I'm more familiar with to least, and he's at the bottom of the list, like bottom 5 guys right now. And he is a monster, and he's very good in online competition. Trials for Live last December as well, and he did.
Mm-hmm.
What do you in the open division at the games?
Middle of the pack.
Do you think like 20th place finish is within reach for him?
Looking at how well he performed, I think so, yeah.
Currently ranked 20th, and it's a little, I haven't done a ton of research. I have Tim Paulson.
Can you burp into your mic
Experience.
or something, James? We can't have that much silence. Like if he talks and you don't know what to say, just burp or something.
No, it's just I guess it didn't come through.
It did. It did.
So where do you have
stand down?
Where do you
You're
have
right.
stats? No, it's all right. I'm just, he
No,
really blasted me there. So
I'm just saying, like getting 20th this year, most people think. There are, Jeff Adler was in the top 5 last year at the games, and I don't have him currently. I don't have him inside the top 10.
And this is based on, but this isn't, those guys aren't based on live competition. This is just you based on comparing stats of or open performance.
I mean, I haven't, like I said, analysis, but based on my just preliminary knowledge of everything about these guys. And for a guy like Jeff Adler, I know quite a bit because I've seen him compete live. I've seen what he can do online. I know where his strengths are. I know what he's been working on. Most part, like where he thinks he needs to improve. And there's a like Stas Solidov, I know hardly anything. I don't know where to put him. So I was just seeing if you had any insight.
I'm throwing middle of the pack out there. It's just, that's what I got.
And it'll be good. The Russians have really, Roman's qualified all these years, but we've never got to see him live at the games. Alexander Elin was there as the national champion, and he's going to be there
How
again
come we
this
never
year.
get to see Roman? How come we never get to see Roman? I've asked Brian this question 20 times. He doesn't want to answer.
But Elin only competed in 3 events before being cut in 2019. 2 or 3 events. I think he was right around 50th place. And
56th. Yeah, you're right.
And
when do games tickets go on sale?
They've been on sale since
They're
February.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
I bought
shit. So you do have valid concerns. You mentioned in the last podcast, I think it was you, right? Someone said
Probably.
that they were like, yeah, I wonder how many people are going to show up or be scared. Maybe they have more tickets than normal, but when I remember in the past, the Madison and Carson would sell out in like under 15 minutes.
I've never seen them promote ticket sales like they are this year.
Wow, that's really weird. That is really weird. Because there aren't a lot of tickets. I mean, well, maybe they have different packages of tickets. Is the
Coliseum should sell like it should sell. You could go online and probably check, but I bought using our affiliate pre-sale code right the first day that it became available.
Brian, did you see that text I sent you the other day? It was a screenshot of a DM about 2 athletes who are brothers who can't get an appointment with their embassy to come to the United States for the CrossFit Games, their individual competitors, until 2023. And they've even already received, they said CrossFit's helping them as much as they can. They said the game sent them letters. They're trying to come. Do you remember that text I sent you? It was in the big thread.
On the big thread?
With it's on the thread with Matt and Ryan, yeah.
I don't.
Let me see
I'm not
if-
sure.
It's it says, "Hey, is there any way you can?" Let's see. Have you heard that yet?
Are you talking about the guys from Serbia?
Yeah, the Dujics. Yeah, I
Jukic's.
found it. Jukic's. Yeah, I sent it to you. Do you want me to
I-
read the text to you or the DM?
Well, it was from someone called Big.
Oh, geez, man, you're giving away all the secrets. You said the name of the thread. You're talking about like who sent me the intel. You're
Oh,
killing me.
I don't know what this is. I remember looking at it and I was like, "What is this?" And I just ignored it. And now you're asking me about it.
Oh, I know you're giving away. You can't reveal the sources. Uh, basically, it looks like
Hey.
those guys are having trouble. Have you heard?
I
of
thought you said it
anyone?
was from these guys.
I don't know who it's from, but it looks like it's someone who's intimate with them. From reading it. I
For-
mean, I don't really. The truth is I pushed it to you so you could like, you know what I mean, like so
But-
you could.
no, I
send
don't
it
have
out.
any-
Like someone
we
knocked
already
at the
know
front
about
door,
this.
and I just said, "Brian, will you get it?" So that's the first you're seeing it right here. Like, look at Brian, maybe even angry a little bit. You think he's angry, Hobart?
He looks pissed from what I normally know.
This news is 24 hours old. Brian likes to be on the edge.
I just
There's, I don't
I
see
wanna
any
update you
news
guys.
here though.
They're
I looked at the
basically that those texts, those DMs say that those guys haven't found a way here, and their path here that they have right now is through an appointment at the embassy in 2023, which, if my math is correct, would mean they would miss the games this year.
James, what were you saying?
as an update. I'm looking at the Ticketmaster Coliseum, and it looks like very few seats are left inside the Coliseum.
Okay, that's good.
I just want to
Better
give
get
you a
'em.
heads up.
I think it's going to be a good show this year. Great to be in the Coliseum.
And I don't think there's a bad seat in that Coliseum. And bring your earplugs. I am not joking. That final
so
event will
fun.
get so loud that your brains want to pop. It's the loudest indoor event I've ever been to. Like no concert, nothing has ever been louder. At the end there, when they're screaming, it's nuts.
It's so fun.
It is fun. I agree. James,
I-
what would you be? Go ahead.
So you said you don't have to redo the story. I should catch up on my homework, but based on what you guys learned about Noah, is it more impressive that his performance now, or less impressive, or
Way more
considering
impressive.
what happened to him this year? Okay.
He
More
basically
impressive, but I would also say that his performance at some tracked for me in any way of what I project for. He was a comfortable second, and knowing that, makes it even a more. I would say yes, I agree with.
he had kidney stones, and they I guess shot a laser into him or something and broke the kidney stones up. But just to make sure that they came out, they put a stent in him. And I don't know if you know where kidney stones come out of, but they come out of your penis. And so to put a stent, I had to ask, where did they put the stent? So basically, they put it up through his, I don't know what that hole is called, but you have one. It's at the end of your penis where the pee comes out of.
Urethra.
Thank you. The hole at the
You're
end of his
welcome.
urethra. Basically, they put the stent up through there, and then there was a string hanging out of his penis that was long enough to not vanish if he chubbed up. I made sure I asked that. And thank you. And he had that hanging out of him for a few days, I think, until he peed it all out, maybe even a week. And he, his words, not mine. It was uncomfortable.
Just, I love that.
So people I know have had kidney stones. It's not fun.
Sevan, about this guys from Serbia. I mean, my first thought was, well, who competed for them in 2019, and how did they get there? But the answer is no. None of the guys, no guy, because I think Lazar Jukic turned down his invite. I don't see another Serbian flag on the board here.
That's some good investigative work, by the way.
But I
It was
mean, in
quick
that
to get
year,
it
there were countries that were able to get to Madison. So it seems weird that this one country. I don't know if it's a country's problem or if it's their problem. Like, the same reason why some of the Russians can get to the U.S. and some cannot.
Oh, you mean like the story? Like the reason why you won't talk about whatever happened why certain
Yeah, the
people can't
problem
come
isn't coming from Russia to the US. It's that guy who can't come from Russia to the US.
Gotcha. Just like Hobart can't come to my house. Has nothing to do with.
I would
Yeah,
love
not
to if you
all
give me an invite.
other Jameses could come to your house, but Hobart, no. That's the difference.
Hobart, if you came to my house, you'd probably lose 20% of your fitness capacity like in a week. You'd have no one to
Or
work
maybe
out with. No one.
maybe you would gain 20% of fitness capacity.
They both.
That's a girl from
both
Serbia
can
who
happen.
came,
Okay.
and she competed in the first event, and she was cut in third to last place. But she was there, and that's the only thing that's really important. So she
What year
was
was
able.
that? What year was that?
2019.
Okay, so those guys should talk to her. If it
Yeah,
really is
I mean, and
anything
the
specific.
the
Right.
bigger picture here is everyone I've asked this question to who has any kind of insight has basically told me that CrossFit is taking this responsibility upon themselves, that they're working with the athletes and have been working with the athletes to get them to the games from wherever they're coming from. So if that's great, can ask for, and if there's one problem with one guy or two guys coming from one specific country, that's really I don't know why that problem is occurring for other people.
Will they backfill? Will they backfill, or it's too late?
Well, that's a
So
great
let's say those
question.
guys can't come. Well,
Backfill in this case is that it's going to be already identified in some other conversations the potential time frame that it could take for that to happen. Even if you're able to come, how much time do you need to prepare for it?
or would you backfill from the last chance qualifier?
Well, last chance qualifier could just as easily have international athletes in those positions.
True.
But I
Hey.
think that they'll intend to have 40 guys at the games.
So the backfill would just trickle that all the way down, like just keep going back.
To
You didn't pass your PCR test. You live in Serbia. That next thing you know, Hobart's in the games.
Yeah, they're gonna pull the Masters men into the Open games.
Where? How? Why not?
what if they said that? What if they
man.
said, have one of you guys in first place after day one, come back on Thursday, compete with the elites?
No,
You-
man.
You'd make sure you were in second.
Yeah.
No, he wouldn't. Hobart's a savage inside. Brian, there's a guy named Jeremy Stuckey, and I guess somehow he gave us some money through YouTube. I don't even know how that works, but it sounds like it's been earmarked to upgrade your internet. I think that's the stipulation on the donation. Although you guys have to know that was the last podcast that was all jacked up. That was totally my fault. That wasn't Brian's fault. We use Riverside FM as our podcasting software, and for some reason, this is the first time it's happened on my end. The whole thing didn't upload, and so then I had to use the backup copy, and it had really shitty audio. But Brian actually did an amazing job yesterday, so he shouldn't get shit for that. I am concerned about Danielle Brandon tomorrow because she is going to be on a cell phone. And that is not that's not like setting us up for success. That's not good. That's like if Hobart didn't sleep the night before the games.
Stuckey is not the
Sevan-
only one who's offered to pay for an upgraded internet, by the way.
Sevan should help you with that. So
I could sell
You
my
had
jacket. I could sell that jacket I was wearing and get him a whole new computer.
yeah, and your hat.
Oh no, I can't part with the hat. Haps. I'll probably never wear that jacket in California.
Well, so you had said that the women's division may have surpassed the men, Sevan, and
Yeah.
what does that mean? And then Brian, is it true? Fact check it.
Let's let Brian do both.
Good answer.
No, I could interpret it, but I'd love to know what Sevan meant before I do.
We just had two of the greatest CrossFitters ever just dominate the men's competition, right? There's no doubt. We just had Rich do a 4-year run, and then we had Matt do a 5-year run, and they kind of did it, maybe more Matt than Rich, but they did it really. Rich maybe did it with more fanfare, but Matt maybe did it with more dominance. Maybe I don't even know if that's true, but now we have this. I feel like the competition in the women's. I feel like the people underneath Tia are so damn good, and they still can't touch her. Like I think those women who are underneath Tia are of the same caliber that they're all superstars. They're all amazing. I'm not sure exactly how to articulate it, but that caliber, you like watching me flub around and talk and try to talk about stuff you talk about, Brian. You have these just savages in the women's class, and they've all, and maybe it's just an emotional analysis, but there's like 7 girls I would think that could win the games if Tia wasn't there, and I don't think that about the men's competition anymore. Like it's a bunch of washed up dudes and then some new dudes.
Oh man.
vying for something. Let's say an old dude does win it this year. Let's say Scott Panchik or Noah wins it this year. I don't think that they repeat. I think it's
What about if
awesome. They
Vellner or
win.
Frykowski wins it? They're just as old as Noah.
How old is Noah?
30. Guys that are 30 years old: Noah Olson, Travis Mayer, Cole Sager, Brent Frykowski, Pat Vellner, all
Oh my
30.
God,
this
we
year.
almost had an episode without saying Travis Mayer's name. Thank you, Brian.
Do you think it's more impressive, or it elevates the women's field that the women's games competitors range from like 17 to 35 at the high, upper levels, and the men I think exist in a smaller age window than that. Is that true, Brian?
This year's men 21 to 37 is
Oh, okay.
17 to 39.
Oh.
But I think you're right, James. I think we're seeing more.
The thing is that the
21-year-old,
the 21-year-old on the men's side, then you have a couple guys that are 22 and Justin Medeiros and Jay Crouch. I would say Guillermo Mejeros from Brazil is the youngest guy. And so I would say he's probably going to be in the bottom 10 this year. This will be his first year in the elite division. Jay Crouch is an interesting one. He's pretty consistent. He reminds me of BKG, just a younger, like less experienced version of he's not going to have a lot of top 5 finishes. He's not going to have a lot of bottom 15 finishes. So he'll probably finish somewhere between 15 and 25 this year. But Justin Medeiros obviously can do very well. He's third last year. He's had a couple of good sanctional performances. So he's the outlier in terms of the capacity to really excel at the women's side. You've already have Haley Adams, who's only finished inside the top 6 in back-to-back years. I mean, her alone has already proven that on the low side, you can have better performances at that age. And on the high side, you have Sam Briggs, who's at the ages that Stas Solodov and Jason Smith are now. I guess she was a little bit younger than that. She was, I think, 34 and 35. She took back-to-back years. So, yes, they've proven higher ranges that you can have excellent performances at the games, in addition to being older and younger and qualifying for the games.
I always wonder why that is, but that's I didn't have the stats behind it, but I had thought that same thing about the women.
The way that I interpreted said about the women surpassing the men is workouts. So I haven't of this yet, but based on my I feel like at this point, pretty much any that has a 65, 95 pound barbell or a 95, 135 pound barbell, that the women will outperform. Now, if you put in a high volume of ring muscle ups, maybe not, but with like most couplets or triplets, if that barbell cycling is in there at those light to maybe even to moderate weights, like a 155, 105, that the women will outperform the men. But if you start that I want to eventually go back and look at some of that and try to see if it's true or if there's been an evolution over time. But it just feels that way to me. And it doesn't only feel that way to me at the highest level. It feels that way at the level. Like the women that have been doing CrossFit for a similar amount of time seem to do better on those workouts, specifically barbell cycling at that light to moderate weight. So that's something that came to mind.
You know what I'm excited about, James?
I want to know.
It's the more emotional and dramatic side of it when someone wins 2 CrossFit Games in a row, if that happens, and like I think the greatest thing that could happen for the sport is like Hopper to win the next 2 games. Then all of a sudden overnight people would be like, oh, he's better than Matt, or If the next person who wins 2 in a row, that conversation is going to start up just right away, right? I mean, just the way it did when Matt won 2 in a row. All of a sudden, like now we have I don't know if it's a problem, but we have just, you can't just win one and anyone bring in the other guys. Like you can't win one championship and we start comparing LeBron to Jordan. But as soon as he wins 2, it's like, uh-oh. And I just like that. That's like a fun discussion for the fans and a fun like thing for fans to like rally behind, waste their time doing while they drink beer.
I want Tia to win 6. I think
That would
be
be
the
amazing.
best. That would be the best case scenario for CrossFit as a sport.
As impressive as she is, man, that and I know Brian disagrees with this, but I think Cara Saunders is like, I think she's a threat. I think she's a threat. Look at Brian. Oh no. I think she's a threat.
I think she's
Although
a
she's
threat
not even a
too.
threat.
I think she's a threat to finish on the, not on top of the podium.
Do you think, not other than she has to go out there and do it, do you think Tia has it locked up?
Look at her results. I mean, she never loses. She's first in the Open this year, first in the quarterfinals, first in the semifinals, first at the only 5 sanctionals she participated in, first in every one of them, and first at the last 4.
Yeah, she looks
Did we-
incredible.
Did we talk about this last time? Where I think I have a
Yeah.
book I'm going to send you, Brian, that I think you'll really like. But I think statistically, mathematically, it's more it's less likely for someone to be a repeat at winner than it is to have an underdog upset.
Less likely to have a repeat winner of the games than to have an underdog.
No, and I think this is just in general, like what's been observed across just different sporting events, competitive events, that it's like it's more likely for an underdog to have an upset than it is to have repeat champions.
Not exclusively to CrossFit.
Yeah, not exclusively to CrossFit. And
What's the-
Ryan right now is going to find the answer to that question, but I could be really wrong. But
What James, what book is it that you want to share with Brian? Paint by Numbers or?
no, it's called The Drunkard's Walk.
Sevan, I hope that wasn't a shot at the painting behind me.
No, that's just like a kid's book. That's just it's making fun of you. But if you don't have kids, you don't get it. The
trying to
Drunkard's
remember
Walk.
The Drunkard's Walk. Yeah, it's how randomness rules our lives. I'm trying to find the author.
Speaking of authors, on Wednesday we're having Sam Apple on, the author of the book Ravenous. If you like history and you like great stories, here we go. Ryan's
Wow,
got
that's
it
a
up.
tough
Can you see
name.
that, James?
Yeah.
How old's the book?
It's not. I don't think it's that old. I probably read it like less than 10 years ago.
And you were
But it's really
stimulated by it?
It's a really fascinating book. Yeah. In the same way, it kind of puts you in this position where you start learning about the statistics of things happening, and you find yourself in the book being like, is it a damned if I do, damned if I don't scenario? But he talks a lot about different sports examples, and it's very, very, very cool.
I'm gonna get it now.
I'll send it to you, Brian.
Did you
Yeah,
read
read
it or
it.
listen to it on audiobook? Oh, okay.
No, I haven't. Yeah, I read it.
2008, so a little older.
Yeah.
The Drunkard's Walk.
Just like
I don't know. I think that I wouldn't be surprised to find that to be true in a lot of sports, but so far in CrossFit, there's been quite a few number of repeat champions to the point that I think it outweighs it. Like 5, 4, and then 4, 2, 9. So 17 of the how many games? 14 or something like that. 17 of the 28. Well, not the first time they win, it's not a repeat. So if you take away all the first time for 5 of them, then it'd be 12 out of 28 repeat winners.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's really interesting, and I wonder too if it just has to do with the age of the sport. Like, it's because CrossFit's a young sport or a younger sport, and the competitive population pool is much smaller and it's not bigger yet. Like, will we get to a point where it's like, we might see a repeat winner every 10 years and it's just way less likely? I think about that a lot. But.
Well, you know what?
Who
Thinking
Brian
about
has as one of his wild cards is Annie Thor's daughter.
wild card.
Well, kind of as an unknown.
And what? Do you know about her, James?
Annie Thor's daughter? Yes.
Her per-
Known,
in-
Sevan.
in terms of her performance this year, like
Okay.
he's giving her hope. He's giving her hope to get on the podium because he's just not sure.
It's
I mean that as a
It's hard.
compliment. That's not a dig, Brian. I mean that as like, holy shit. Like, yeah, like here's someone who could just.
Yeah. I mean, I misinterpreted. I thought you were saying a wild card or an unknown, like we didn't know who she was. Yes. What I told you the other night is
we don't know who's going to show up. We don't know who's going to show up.
But based on what we do know, which is that she's outperformed her expectations in all three stages of competition so far. She's improved in all three stages of competition so far. She has attracted very well at the game. She has more experience and can draw on that than field. So yeah, if she's and we've seen that women who've had children can come back and be relevant and completely unprecedented at this point for that to happen either. That she's competitively ever checked out of the sport. I think she do that to give birth, obviously, and very real possibility that she can make a podium again this year.
Which is awesome. I like that.
That would be awesome.
It would be hard. It would be hard to do, but I feel like you have to put her in the conversation.
It's funny because you get so roped in, like you have a very narrow perspective, like I do anecdotally, and it's some of the, there are so many new competitors around who I've never been around, and they've all put in millions of hours, and they all have this killer attitude. But it's like Annie's one of those people, and Sevan, you know this so well. It's like who you meet, and you're like, this is just somebody who winning is just in their DNA. It's like she doesn't know how to lose. And whatever that is, if it's up, it doesn't matter what it attributes to it, but it's like you hang out with her and you're like, oh yeah, that totally makes sense.
And that's when you're projecting how someone could do it the weekend of the games, because someone who has that innately in as a part of them in 12th place after 2 days, they're still gonna think on Saturday morning, I have a chance to win this thing, like because they can't program it otherwise. Other people get to 12th place or 15th place after a couple of days, and they're like, all right, I'm just hoping, see if I can hang on to top half. And if you have that mindset, you have no hope, because the second half of the weekend is completely different than the first half or of the week.
Yeah. That's what I always liked about BKG too. I think time I've spent with him, competing against him, and just listening to him talk about competing. I remember the year that they had all those cuts and everyone got really upset. The national champion year, that was what, 2019? Yeah. I think BKG had some one-liner just saying like, every single event, I just assume that I have to earn the right to be in the next event. It's like, it doesn't matter what my placing. I was like, that's such a, cool attitude to have. And he did well the whole weekend, but he just, has that like fighter mentality. It's cool.
How did he place in the 2019 games?
Third. He was a second.
Yeah, third.
Place at the games. The other time was 2015.
I don't remember what year it was. One year I thought he was going to win it. It was looking good for him.
That was the first, the second Murph. It was the year he won Murph or smashed Murph, right?
He won Murph in 2015 and in 2016.
Okay.
Brian, before we started the show, when you and Ryan were chatting, he said something about you being in the 2017 documentary. Why do I not remember that?
It was a 2009.
Oh, okay. And
that's
the
why you
one
don't
that
remember.
Heber and Marsden made?
Yeah, he's talking about actually that whatever they produced that year. And I just had two
And your face was in it?
Yeah, and I had no idea that I was going to be involved in that in any way. When I go to competitions and Heber and Mars are there, they'll regularly find me 1 to 5 times over the course of the weekend and put a camera in my face and say what's going on and what's about to happen next. And then a lot of times it's either right or it's so wrong that they'll just put it in their little show because it's like funny part of this or informative part of the story of the weekend. That year to do. I just happened to run into him a couple times. They talked to me for a couple minutes, and then 6 months later in London, strength and depth with them, and they're like, "Hey, will you? Are you willing to sign an NDA and to be or whatever agreement they wanted to? We're gonna want to feature some of your interviews in the movie." And I was like, "Oh, damn, yeah, cool." And it wasn't even on my radar that could happen.
So when you go to these events, now that you can get on camera, are you a little more concerned with your appearance? Because you seem to not give a fuck on the podcast.
Oh God. I guess I don't think about it. Maybe should I think about it more?
No, do you? You do you. Plus,
He's
what
too
will I
busy
make fun-
crunching. He's too busy crunching numbers, man.
Yeah, like what if you go in there with your beard trimmed up and your eyebrows all
I was
waxed
full.
and
I had.
shit, then
I
what
was
will-
fully shaved in the movie in 2019. That's probably why you don't remember me.
Yeah.
What
James,
are you gonna
thanks
do at the games this year? Let me get that one question out. Or we gotta
Yep,
go. Is it too
yep.
late for you guys?
No. It's never too late. I mean, you're up the latest at all of us.
Oh, he moved.
Where do you
I'm in
live?
Colorado.
Oh shit! I think you said
I'm a
that
little
last
bit
time we
cl-
had you on.
I'm a
Sevan.
little bit closer to you.
So Ryan might be latest where Ryan is.
He's asleep.
Oh, that's why we've been getting so much interaction from him. Oh, he just
He's
put the book
asleep.
up. He just put the book up.
Yeah.
That was
Go ahead,
nice,
Brian.
actually. What was I supposed to talk about?
James had one more question. Remember what it is,
What was
James?
It was a big question, but maybe you guys will have me back on because I had a cool question. I'll save it so that way I'll dangle that. But I want to know what Brian's gonna be doing at the games this year.
Not 100% sure. I feel like from the communication I've gotten so far that it'll be the same roles that I had in 2000, which was basically to write the scripts, ceremonies at the games, and to help work with on the back end of the app to get information out to everyone who.
Cool.
Brian does have two. I haven't read them yet. He sent them to me tonight, but they haven't been published yet. I don't know. Am I allowed to say that? But two articles. He told me the title of them that are coming out on the Morning Chalk Up that sound absolutely fascinating. Can you tell us the titles, Brian? Are you allowed to do that?
Yeah, of course. One of them is taking a look at the top 10 finishers from the 2019 games, which was an outlier of a year for many different reasons. Right now to see if like those 20 athletes who happened to do really well that year when things were so different could do well this year when it was more a traditional season and what we're used to prior to 2019. And then the second one is just a reflection on the semifinal programming from the first year of asking some of the kind of the big and then zooming in to answer them with more exact examples or like definitive examples.
So if you'd like to read Brian's work, hit even the smarter version of him, go over to the Morning Chalk Up, Brian Friend, and you won't have to worry about me interrupting and changing the conversation every time I get bored or whatever, me making fun of him. And if you want to see Hobart, you can buy a ticket for the CrossFit Games and watch him compete in the Masters division.
Thank you.
Dude, I'm really, really pumped that they've moved the Masters and that it's not directly overlapping with the individual and team competitions this year.
Yeah, I'm excited for that too because I'll get to watch more of the individual and team, and I'm pretty pumped. That Tuesday to Thursday schedule is going to be nice.
I think. Do you think they're doing that because of the bigger names? You think they're doing that because of the big names, like people like Hobart?
No.
Well, you can't answer that, James.
It's better. I mean, it's better for everyone. The one thing that I know is they've reduced the number of competition venues that we're using. So instead of having Coliseum, North Park, and Age Group Pavilion, there's no Age Group Pavilion. So it could possibly be just from a cost perspective. If they can have one less competition floor, but they have to have 2 more days of competition, maybe there's a cost analysis there. The other is that a lot of people who usually work at the CrossFit Games internationally can't get there this year, so they don't have the staffing that they want to have a third pavilion. So I don't know if either of those are true, but they're just thoughts that I have.
It's a win-win then.
Well, I think it's a win-win for people can watch the Masters athletes and all those, or I should say the age group and adaptive athletes, because they're all competing on those 3 days. People can watch the elites and teams compete later in the weekend because there won't be any conflict of interest between athletes or fans. I mean, if let's say that James's family wants to watch, the Mayhem team compete, well, they can this year, and they don't have to worry about missing what James is doing. Like they can do both.
Or if they want to throw tomatoes at the Mayhem team, the Mayhem Empire, whatever his family wants to do.
Whomever they would want to watch, right?
The Mayhem Empire. Oh man! All right, that's perfect.
So James, one more thing. I had this in my list of desperate questions when I run out of questions for you. What would you normally be doing at the games if you weren't training, if you weren't working out, if you weren't competing? And are you going to be working for CrossFit? I mean, I know you work for CrossFit HQ and you're in your normal Clark Kent life. But will you, when the event's over, will you put on your CrossFit HQ hat and start working the event?
I don't know yet what I'm gonna do. I mean, the last couple of years I did demo team, which I really liked. I liked a lot, and I think but I would still be training for that. So, and then I have commented. I kind of wanted to get back into commentating for games, semifinals, live events, but I didn't really press it too much over the last year just because there weren't a lot of live events. But that was something I thought about doing again.
That makes sense why you're jockeying. You're on Brian's jock so hard.
Yeah,
I have nothing
just
to do
trying
with
to learn good lessons.
In the past, why do you like the demo team? And in the past, Dave has let superstars like you make guest appearances on the demo team, or had I can think of at least one person who was kind of unofficial on the demo team who would pop in and out.
Why do I like the
that?
demo team? I just care about the sport. I really care about the sport, so I want to participate in that process that helps make the tests as awesome as possible. I love that part of it. It's been a huge part of my life, and it's just a good way. I feel like I can still give back. Yeah, I like that part of it a lot. It's just cool. It's cool seeing the behind the scenes, just from volunteers to community to Dave's process to his team. Like, I participated in it for so long. It's neat to just see all that goes into it.
Have you ever had a
and you get free
for
gear.
the demo? Free gear
Right.
is nice. Are there times where you'll do a workout and Dave will say, "What did you think?" without telling you what he thinks?
Yeah.
And when you give that feedback, do you feel like it's ever actually is made?
Oh, I know it has. Yeah.
And then when you see that play out in the competition and it works, oh, fuck, thank God.
Yeah. I mean, it's small pieces of feedback, but yeah, absolutely. The standard was a workout that got tested a lot in 2019. That final event got tested a lot.
And was there he said that he had that idea for a decade.
Yeah.
So what were they trying to pin down? The time cap?
I think, there was everything from the time cap to the order of the events to
okay,
changing how much strategy you gave to the athlete. Like, you could let them chip at different parts of the event, or they could choose whichever one of the three that they wanted to start with, and then you would have had people starting on different ones. But I think that workout turned out, being there in the stadium, for anybody who remembers, that was like, when Matt finished that workout, it was insane.
Well, really, it was the first 5 snatches that made the drama of the workout. Those two guys got to the bar and he ripped 5 in a row, and that was it.
I still get goosebumps talking about that, because just being in there, and then everyone saw him do that, and it was just like, Matt was just like, all right, I'm going to put the car into turbo gear, and this whole other speed that I have. It was very cool. But yeah, that was a good example of a workout where we tested both individual, team, different people, different athletes a ton to get that version. And I think, yeah, and I got feedback, and it came out just right.
Does the inverse ever happen, where you give feedback on something, they don't take it into account, and then the competition happens and you're like, well, it got fucked up just how I told you it would, and you did nothing about it despite me telling you?
Yeah,
Man.
I haven't noticed that, to be honest with you. And the reason I'll say I don't think that really happens is because they get so much data now on testing. Like, I bet that's happened in the past, but I think now they get the vetting process is robust, and I think it's the final product is so much better tested and
because occasionally I have the opportunity, not necessarily to test, but to read through the workouts and the workout flow and the description and the time cap, or a competition starts. Sometimes the competition director will send them to me and say, hey, can you look over these? Sometimes they want me to review it for grammar before they publish it. But obviously in the reviewing for grammar, I'm still going to look at the work. Well, does this actually make sense? And occasionally I give feedback and it's received and something's done about it. And sometimes, more rarely, after the fact, they're like, oh man, we probably should have changed that. It's not something that's so obvious that it like ruins the event, but it's smaller things, like you said. And once in a while, I don't get asked something, see it immediately. I'm like, oh my God, this is not going to work. And I'll say something to someone and it's too late. And then they'll be like, oh man. beforehand. And it's, again, it doesn't ruin the event necessarily, but it's like, here's a good example. In London one year, there was a jump rope at the end of the workout. It was 300 double unders to finish the workout. They were having all of the athletes do, I think it was 200 or 300. They were having them do a huge quantity of double unders in a fixed location 2 feet away from the finish line without progressing forward at all as they were going through the double unders. And I'm like, and it was a 20 athlete lane wide. I'm like, how are you ever expecting to catch the winner? There's going to be 20 guys doing double unders. I mean, at the end of a chipper workout, it's going to take you 3 minutes to do 200 double unders anyway. And everyone's going to catch up to the double under. Guys doing double unders all within 2 feet of the finish line. You have no chance for any of your cameramen to react to this. And you know what? They changed it. They changed it.
Oh.
And they moved the guy, and they made him go down like 50 at a time and come back around. And then you could see the progression, and it was easier to tell the story.
Damn. I mean, that's really, really, really good advice. That's like a mistake that would have been made at the CrossFit Games in 2008. Actually, yeah, maybe not even then. But yeah, that's good foresight. I've seen Hobart give feedback to, because of my voice or my posture. I've seen Hobart give feedback to Dave on multiple occasions, and I see Dave ask for it on the regular. And I have seen, like, immediately, I can think of a workout in specific that immediately right after Hobart finished it, they immediately went into a powwow, and he had like 10 questions for Hobart. And basically it was, is the weight okay? Did you like all the things that James was saying? Did you like the order? How many people, James, do you think are going to be able to finish this? I mean, he really will pepper. The testing team is more than them just going through the movements and Dave making the assessment by himself. There's a exit interview. Wouldn't you say, James?
Yeah, there is an exit interview.
But
I was gonna say, maybe this is a hanger for me to be able to come back, but this is like, I wanted to ask Brian a question related to like what programming advice he would give to certain athletes, but we don't have to get into that right now.
Ooh.
How would he
Coach
program
Brian, games Brian, everything Brian.
Well, just to circle back to that last thing before maybe we end. All the stuff that I have in terms of experience, like what I would contribute or relay to people who are asking me about it, is only based on the things that I've seen. And most of it is Dave and his team, developing. To the 2010 games, for example, there was the pistols, deadlift, running back and forth across the floor. It was really hard to know who. James could have been 2 rounds ahead of me, but we both could have been doing double unders in the same spot. We both been doing pistols or deadlifts at the same spot. Attention to know, and as soon as the camera goes away from the wide shot, that doesn't happen anymore. And especially not if it's a competition that Dave's running, because he learned that you need to have a progression along the floor. I think about the cage, like you're just going down and back across this cage. Now, luckily, it was a short enough rounds, and the rounds were long enough that you could tell. But it was still possible that James and I could have both been on the cage, and he could have been a whole round ahead of me. On the floor or something to indicate progression in the workout. Other than that, I actually said earlier this year, I'd love to see the killer cage come back. But I think that if it did come back, there'd be an evolution of it where you'd actually be able to visually see the rounds that the athletes are on as they progress through it, even if they're going back and forth on
the killer cage was monkey bars.
Yeah.
That event was insane. That was amazing.
It was really, and the Watt bike. It was like a bunch of new stuff.
And
the Watt bike. I forgot all about that. Are they still around?
I actually don't know.
I think I saw one at an affiliate like a couple of years ago there when I was like dropping in somewhere in the corner picking up dust.
Wow.
It's cool.
Well, thank you. Hour and 35 minutes. That's our first test of a live feed. We brought on James to carry the show. Thank you, James.
Yeah, thank Brian. Thank you guys. Thank you, Sevan. Thank you, Ryan.
Thank you, Ryan. Thanks, Matt.